We live in the most productive era in human history, but for the first time in centuries, the effort of an entire lifetime is no longer enough to guarantee four walls and a roof. What used to be the starting line of adult life has become the grand prize of a lottery almost nobody is winning. Over the last 10 years, real home prices rose more than 40% in the world's most developed countries. 40%. This isn't a local problem, it's the same mechanism breaking down in New York, London, Sydney, and Toronto at the same time. Why did owning a home become the new luxury? And what's driving a crisis that's pushing entire generations out of the market? Until recently, there was a silent agreement that held the middle class together. If you had a stable job, discipline, and 10 years of savings, the keys to your own home would be waiting at the end of the road. It was hard, yes, but the math worked. The problem is that contract was torn up without warning. Many believe the current crisis is just a rough patch in the market. But what the IMF found after analyzing 5 decades of history is far more disturbing. We're not in a cycle, we're in a rupture. For the first time in more than a decade, the price of a roof has completely detached from the reality of what people earn, everywhere in the developed world. At the same time, when we say that real estate rose 40% above inflation over the last decade, we're not just talking about numbers on a chart. We're talking about time, lifetime. For an ordinary family, that increase means the effort that once secured a home today barely covers rent on a one-bedroom apartment. In the United States and the United Kingdom, the Housing Affordability Index didn't just fall, it melted. Being at current levels means the basic math of survival broke. For a typical family to make a mortgage payment today, they would have to choose between dinner on the table or their children's health insurance. It's no longer about cutting the daily coffee, it's an impossible choice between basic needs. It's the collapse of an equation that worked for generations. And that collapse has a very specific face. The buyer who does everything right, follows all the rules, and still gets turned away at the door. A first-time buyer in the United States today is staring at math that simply doesn't add up. Picture this. For every step your salary takes forward, the price of a home takes 3 leaps away from you. The result? The average American today would need to work 5 full years without spending a single cent on food, electricity, or transportation just to reach the price of an average home. It's a race where the finish line moves faster than your legs can carry you. And the worst part, the market has simply stopped. Recently, home sales hit levels we haven't seen in 30 years. What locked the system is a kind of golden cage. People who already own a home are trapped in it. Selling today would mean trading a cheap 2020 mortgage for an astronomical debt at current rates. The result is a ghost market. Those who want to sell can't, and those who want to buy find nothing. In practice, if you open a real estate website today with a household income of $75,000, 3/4 of the homes you'll see are mirages. They don't exist for you. Only 23% of the market is open to the middle class. The rest has become an exclusive club where almost nobody has an invitation. There's a category of people for whom the crisis isn't about waiting for rates to fall. For them, the math never worked, and without radical change, it never will. We're talking about more than 11 million families competing for a stock that barely reaches 4 million units. The result is a gap of 7 million homes that simply don't exist. To put that in scale, you would need to finish a new home every 45 seconds nonstop, 24 hours a day for 10 full years, just to close that gap. In places like Nevada or Dallas, the situation is even crueler. Picture a line of 100 desperate families waiting for a roof, and the government showing up with only 16 keys to hand out. What happens to the other 84 families doesn't show up on Wall Street charts. It shows up on sidewalks and in shelters that never stop filling up. Today, 3 out of 4 of those families spend more than half of everything they earn just to avoid sleeping on the street. When rent swallows your paycheck that way, life becomes an impossible choice. You either pay for the roof or you eat. The housing crisis isn't an isolated event, it's the trigger for a cascade of other crises. And the survival stock is disappearing. Over the last decade, the number of rentals below $1,000 simply evaporated. We lost 7 million units to inflation and to the luxury market. So the solution seems obvious, right? If homes are missing, just build more. But this is exactly where the logic breaks down. Recently, the United States built fewer homes than the year before. The intuitive solution is moving in exactly the wrong direction. And the reason for that is a maze that almost nobody can get through. The intuitive answer to a housing shortage is build more. But why is the developed world building less at exactly the moment the crisis is peaking? The answer lies in an invisible wall of paperwork and rubber stamps. In cities like San Francisco, a permit for an average building can take 605 days to be approved, nearly 2 years of bureaucratic paralysis. And here's the secret the charts don't show. While that paperwork gathers dust on a government desk, the project dies. Cement costs go up, financing gets more expensive, and the development that made sense on paper stops being viable. The result? The developer walks away or is forced to sell the units at astronomical prices just to cover the losses from waiting. The bureaucracy that was supposed to guarantee order has become the biggest invisible tax on housing. And what we've found is that this isn't an American miscalculation. It's a paralysis pattern across the entire developed world. Out of control material costs, a shortage of skilled labor, and a tangle of regulations that turn every new roof into an inescapable financial maze. Washington put this on the table, a law to tear down some of these barriers and open space for new construction. But even the bill's own supporters admit the effect will take years to reach the streets. The problem moves at the speed of a wildfire, while the solution crawls at the pace of bureaucracy. This isn't a passing economic cycle. It's a failure in the structure of how we decide where and how people can live. And what makes it more urgent is that this failure is spreading cracks across the entire planet. In the United Kingdom, the situation has reached a breaking point. The number of homeless people in England hit record levels, forcing authorities to admit what many had already felt firsthand: the system failed. And if you ask someone in London, Berlin, or Sydney, the answer will be the same. The numbers don't work. What we're seeing is the global shrinking of affordable housing stock. But the impact goes far beyond four walls. The crisis is trapping people where they are. Think about what that means. When rent in any city that offers good jobs becomes unaffordable, your mobility dies. You stop chasing a better opportunity because you can't afford the toll of living near it. You end up accepting a mediocre job with a stagnant wage, simply because it's the only place where you can still pay rent. The housing crisis has stopped being just about where you sleep, it's become an anchor that holds back your professional progress. It's an invisible trap that swallows not just your money, but your ability to build a better future. And when that anchor pulls you down, the impact hits the most sensitive place of all: your long-term financial freedom. When housing swallows 30, 40, or even half your paycheck, the first thing that dies is your future. No room to save, no breath to invest, no hope of a dignified retirement. The wealth ladder that previous generations climbed, buying homes and watching their net worth grow, has been pulled away from those just starting out. Today, if you're a renter, the odds are 50-50. It's a coin flip where the loser spends far more than they should just to have a roof to sleep under. And for those who believe the government's safety net will cushion the fall, reality is a shock. Only 1 in 4 families entitled to housing assistance actually receives any help. There are nearly 14 million families in a line that doesn't move people the system acknowledges need help, but for whom it simply has no answer. What happens to the stability of a society when an entire generation realizes the truth? That the dream of homeownership stopped being a reward for effort and became a matter of luck, the luck of being born in the right decade or the right family. When merit is replaced by a biological lottery, what's left is the feeling that the rules of the game were changed in the middle of the match. This isn't just a market failure, it's the end of a promise. The global housing crisis is not an accident. It's the perfect convergence of decades of negligence, bureaucracy that suffocated supply, and a market that simply froze. The 7 million home gap we've seen today won't be closed by a single new law or a small rate cut. It demands a complete rethinking of how society views the right to have a roof. The IMF and OECD have already sounded the alarm. The urgency is at its peak, but government's response still moves at the speed of rubber stamps, while people's lives move at the speed of necessity. 30% fewer affordable rentals, sales at their lowest level in 3 decades, 7 million families with no way out. This isn't a passing market correction, it's the collapse of a generational promise. It's the market failing at its most basic function, providing shelter for those who build it. To keep following the analysis of what's really moving the global economy and how it reaches your wallet, subscribe. And tell me in the comments, is the dream of homeownership still possible for your generation, or are we just watching the end of an era? See you in the next video.